everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. As a reminder, over the last few weeks we've started looking at the hot comics both from the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the hot comics from Key Collector, Comic Tom's video. Key Collector actually picks up 20. We just look at the 10 that Tom breaks down in this video. Looking back at those, see what they're doing 6 months later so we can learn, see if we can see some patterns, understand what comics to chase, what comics to wait on, and just try to make our purchases a little smarter. This list is from August 23rd, 2019. I'm recording this on February 20th, 2020. So, to 2020. So, without further ado, let's get into this week's list of comics. We actually got 17, 16, depending on how you want to break one of them down. So with that, let's get started. First up is we had one book that hit the list because of option-related information, and that is Empty Man #1. This is one of several optioned properties. They got transferred to Disney when they bought Fox. This is a horror comic, and it kind of had some buzz because Disney didn't let the rights go. They actually kept them. And there was a lot of things that Fox had rights to that Disney just went on and let go, didn't keep. They kept this one. Not sure that Disney's going to make it, but you never know. But basically, it jumped from cover price book to a $15 book. Sorry, my handwriting was a little bad right there. And so it jumped from basically a cover price book to a $15 book. And now it's a cover price book again. 9/8 can be had for 50 or under. So yeah, there was no development with this. It was just that Disney kept the option, to develop it. That was our only option news this week. So let's move into the hot indies of the week that weren't related to option news. And first up is Psycho List #1. And this was a $15 book out of the gate, had a little bit of buzz around it, and now it's a cover price book again. And occasionally going for closer to 10, like 8 or something, but mostly it's a cover price book plus shipping. Not a lot here. Hasn't been much continuation to this. Not a lot of buzz. No buzz has continued around this series. Our second kind of hot indie is Dead End Kids #2. And there was apparently a little bit of limited in the initial release. Or was fewer of the #1. #1 had been hot. We talked about it on this list a couple weeks ago. And it was $20 to $30 right out of the gate. And #2 was actually going for more than #1 was. And now it's also a cover to $10 book, or $10 book, 10 price. A cover to $10 book. 9.8 actually went for 20 plus shipping. 20 shipped. On the 9.8 of this book. This book has Dead End Kids was only like a 3-book series, I think. There's been no continuation to the buzz, nothing going on there. So, not much happening with the indies this week. None of them maintained, whether they were optioned or not. Let's move on to covers. And we have 4 hot covers this week. First up is Absolute Carnage Separation Anxiety #1, The Crane in 1 in 100. And if it looks familiar, this is because it was on the list last week. And this is one of those weird things of doing 2 lists. The same stuff that made it hot last week and hit the Tom's list, I believe, last week, made it hot and hit CBSI's list this week. Differences in when they were pulling their lists together, I guess. I don't know, but it basically was still going for the same price it was last week. And it actually went up. It went from last week, it was 110. Got my books confused, and it had jumped all the way up to 150. So this actually hit the CBSI list both weeks. So it went from 110 last week when we talked about it. It was up to 150, and now it is a $20 to $30 book. 9.8s are going for under ratio at under $100, 80, 90 bucks. Another hot cover that didn't amount to anything, didn't have any staying power. Next is Spawn 299, the Boston Con Matina variant, which was limited to 500. This book, even as Tom was talking about it, was a they were talking about that it went for as high as 350 and as high as 500. But yet, when CBSI was mentioning, but it was already down to, by the time they actually posted the list, to going for like 220 to 250. So it had already started to drop off. Like even during the week, after the peak during the week. Now it's basically $100 book raw. Not very, basically nothing sailing. Like one for 100, one went for 200 raw, but you can get 9.8s for 150 to 250. Still significantly down from where it was. I mean, it's a limited book. It's a cool cover. It has value, just not the crazy initial price value. Once again, one of those, just a little patience if you really wanted it. It's not necessarily affordable, but it's a lot more affordable now than it was. Next is a pair of covers. So when I talked about it last week, it was, and it's House of X, Powers of X. And this is the second straight week. Last week they were going for 30-ish or 20 to 30 a piece and 50 for the set. Now they were going for 50 each and 100 for the set. So looking back at them now, they're going for 10 to 20 each, 50 to 70 for a set. Which the math on that doesn't, if the math doesn't make sense on that to you, you're right. And 9.8s are going for, a set of 9.8s is going for like 150. So that is House of X, Powers of X, number 2, the Putri connecting variants. And our last cover is kind of an oddball. This is the Absolute Carnage number 1, 1 in 200 blank variant, red blank variant, the red blank. And this book was very limited. Obviously, it's a 1 in 200. And people went nuts for this cool red cover that they wanted to get art on. And it was going for $200 ratio right off the bat. Still got some value. Basically, raw copies now cost you 70 to 80. 9.8s are going to cost you... There's only been 2 sales of 9.8s, 175 to 275. Asking price for these, for raw copies, range from 150-ish to a little over 200. So asking prices are pretty astronomical. Most of the 9.8, there were a couple people that actually had 9.8s like listed for sale, but most of them have art on them at this point if they're on sale. The still blanks are going for that. Like I said, when they're listing them way higher than they've been going for, they've only been selling for 70 to 80 for raws. Next on our list, we're going to change categories, and we are going to go into recalled books. And this is one of our books from last week, and this is the Supergirl number 33. So Superman didn't make the list 2 weeks in a row, but the Supergirl recall did. Last week we were talking about it was going for 30 to 40-ish for either cover. This week it was up to 50-ish plus, 50 plus, sorry. And now, as we talked about last week, this is a $10 to $15 book. 9.8s can be had for $60, $70-ish. So yeah, not much to talk about there. This book plummeted back to earth. Didn't really have any staying power. Now, we're going to move into TV, movie spec, most of which is MCU, but there's a little bit of non-MCU spec, TV show kind of spec. And the first is DC Comics Presents number 47. And this is the first appearance of He-Man in comics. And this had everything to do with the announcement that Kevin Smith was working on a new anime-style animated series of He-Man. And basically, as a result of this, a 9.8 hit a record of $950. I wondered if we would see high prices this week, because we've just had an announcement in the last week of the casting announcement of who's giving voices to all these roles. Mark Hamill's doing Skeletor, and there's several other actors. I won't go through the whole list. I thought maybe this book is bumped back, and it is not really. Now it's going for still a $50 to $150, depending on condition, book raw. There's only been 3 9.8 sales since November, and they've been $650, $465, and $550 in that order, with the $550 coming earlier this month. So nothing, and no kind of sales, no kind of real bump that I noticed from the actual announcement of the cast, which was a little surprising. I thought we might get one, but we did not. Next up in our MCU spec is Web of Spider-Man number 118, and this was rumors that Sony was potentially going to try to do a Scarlet Spider series, which I don't know how that works. If you don't get, I guess you get an actor that looks a lot like Tom Holland. I'm not sure how that works with him being a clone, but that was the rumors. And basically it caused this book to jump up to $30 raw, 9.8 for hitting highs of 225. Now it's a $15 to $30 book, so it still occasionally goes up close to 30 for a really nice one, but most of them are 15, 20-ish. 9.8s are down in the 150 to 190 range. Asking price is kind of on the high end of both those ranges at 20 to 30 or 180 plus for 9.8. So that is Web of Spider-Man number 118. Cool book. Not sure how solid the spec is on this, but it is also cooled as you got away from an announcement. So they might still be doing it, but we got away from an announcement. Book cooled. That is a consistent pattern with these movie books. Next is Fantastic Four number 4, The First Silver Age Namor. Now this is a book, discussion of Namor coming to the MCU, that he might be in Black Panther 2, all these kind of rumors caused it to hit records. 7.5 went for $72.50, 6.5 went for $67.50, 3.0 went for $2,000. Basically, it was hitting records across the thing. Not a lot of sales on this book. I couldn't really find raw copies on eBay at this point of this one. Pretty much they're all slabbed. So I just kind of looked through the most recent sales at some different values, because there's not a ton of turnover at any one grade. But most recently, we had, like, here that has happened in the last month. These are all sales in the last month. 8.5 went for $8,000, so not a lot more than that 7.5 at $7,200, but maybe that's about right. And we said the 6.5 went for $67.50. Most recent one went for $6,600, so still right in that range. And a 3.0 now has come back a little bit. There's been a couple of sales recently of that in the $1,400, $1,500 range. So depending on the grade, it's cooled a little bit, but this is a really strong book. This is a book that's not going to ever really, it'll have ebbs and peaks, but it's not really ever going to come down to a significant amount. So with that, I think we have one more spec book. We have just one more, and that is our MCU news kind of book. And this book, this is The Man Called Nova number 1, the first Richard Rider. Obviously, there's been rumors about Nova coming to the MCU basically since Guardians of the Galaxy number 1. So far, it hasn't happened. But this bump was all about the Russos made a joke somewhere that Nova was actually hidden in the battle scene of Endgame. And it had people like searching for the video and going crazy, and the book jumped, and raw copies jumped up to $85, and 9.8 went for a record of $1,400. And this was even after people were still doing this, even after the Russos came out and said we were joking. He's not actually in there. Like they admitted that it was a joke, and people were still going crazy at that point. And this book has come back significantly. Like raws now can be had for $30, $40, $50. Really nice ones might push $100 occasionally. So not that much different, but 9.8s are going for $750 to $900 as opposed to that $1,400 back 6 months ago. And asking prices for this is really right in those ranges. So not a lot of information there additionally. So last category, we have 4/5 comics, and I'll explain that here with the very first one in it, and kind of the comic news, comic buzz area, and most of these have to do with the Absolute Carnage series. First up is sort of 2 books. On one list, we had Venom, First Host, number 3, the first appearance of Sleeper, the cover A, and on the other list, they talked about the second print. So they each focus on one focus on the second print, one focus on cover A. I'm going to handle these together. For the cover A, back then it was jumping up. It's basically going for for $25, $30. Actually, both covers were going for $25, $30 back in the summer. The cover A has dropped down to a $10 to $20 book now. Still some buzz. Sleeper has been used in Donny Cates' store. He's still around. 9.8 on this, though, can be had for 50, 60 bucks. So not a lot of value there. Asking price is basically that $60 range. Now, the second print, on the other hand, is a little different. The second print of this book, which is a cooler cover, it also shows Sleeper in a form, though, that he really doesn't have now. Doesn't really look like this as a character now, but still was going for 25 back then. Now it's going for 40 to 60 for raw copies. 9.8s are 150 to 200. So it's clear the market has decided that the second print, which is more limited, probably the cooler cover, is the book to be had here, which doesn't happen often, but there are occasions where the second print does become the more valuable print. This appears to be one of those. Next is a book this is the book I was thinking about earlier that the same peak caused it to switch lists. I just kind of screwed that up earlier. This is Venomlethal Protector number 4, the first Scream. Like I said, it's second week on a list, but they're opposite lists, and it's the same peak. It was going for, we talked about last week, it was 20 to 25 bucks back then. 9.8s were hitting 100, and now it's a $10 book, and 9.8s are 75-ish, 70-ish. So, 2 books to go. Our last one associated with Carnage or Venom or any of that series that was going on, and that is Amazing Spider-Man 344, the first appearance of Cletus Cassidy. And again, this had to do with the popularity of Absolute Carnage at this point. Raw books there jumped up to 30 plus, which was a significant jump from where they had been going. Now they're back to where they were before the little peak. Is a 10 to 20, occasionally $30 book for a really nice copy. 9.8s are sitting about 150. So this book had some value before the little peak. It jumped up a little bit. It's basically lost all that gain it made with the release of Absolute Carnage. And our final book of the week is Batman number 77. And spoilers if you don't know, this is the death of Alfred. This book came out and it was $20 week of release. CBSI talked about the fact that, death books don't always hold a lot of value. It's pretty rare. This is no different. It's down. It's still it's still going for $10, so double cover, but not, carrying that 20 plus that it was doing back at its release. And a 9.8 can be had for $50, $60. So, that is this week's list. Like I said, we had 5 Comic Buzz related books that were all 4 of which were related to Absolute Carnage series. Basically nothing other than Namor has really held its value. This week, even Nova and the first He-Man and some of those have come back. So not a great list if you tried to buy stuff when you hit it. Not a surprise. That happens most weeks. But I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.